It is Sadie Says time again, and I'm your host, Natalie Sady. Joining me today is another Australian, because I like to support my fellow Aussies, artist James Peter Henry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
And also for bringing your art.
Pleasure.
So those who watch the show regularly would notice that this is not what we normally have behind us, but I am loving it. So you actually live over here in the US.
I'm about a 4-minute walk from your studio, Beverly Hills.
And you also spend a lot of your time in New York.
I do, yes. So in 2016, I was there all year. Prior to that, it was every 2 or 3 weeks, going backwards and forth from New York to Los Angeles.
And you grew up in country Victoria. Did you think as a child that you would ever be living between New York and Los Angeles and travelling the world doing this?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I saw a photo of New York, I was like, I have to live there. And LA was basically the same. So I always knew it was going to happen. Yeah. Absolutely.
I always felt the same way about New York. LA, I didn't know enough about, but that's just me digressing a little bit. I love though that you knew and you kind of manifested it in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just, I always knew I had to do it. So when I got a green card, it was, okay, goodbye.
Fair enough. But so I was reading something online the other day and it said that you credit living in the country to, that was responsible for your overactive imagination.
I think when you grow up on a farm, which is 4 hours west of Melbourne, there's not too much to do unless you're a farmer.
Right.
So it was kind of like I had to be creative.
But plenty of other country kids, just hang out with friends and I could come up with a lot of things, but I don't know if I should. But do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I mean, teenagers go and sit in the paddocks and they drink and they get in the utes that drive around the properties and they just go and have a good time with their friends. But you've turned it into something else.
We did that. But, there's a lot of times on my hands, and I went to an art school as well in Hamilton. So that's sort of where it all started. It just became me,
And was it a natural progression? Because we were talking before we started filming.
Yeah.
In my mind, I have great artistic abilities.
Right.
In reality, not so much. Like I have a vision of drawing a beautiful human body or something like that, and it ends up being a stick figure with boobs or big hands or something like that. It's not a good time. Nobody enjoys my art. But was it natural or was it learned?
I was inspired by Aboriginal art. A lot of caves around, when we went to the Grampians and stuff like that, to the mountain range, there was caves with Aboriginal art that no one had really seen. So I was inspired by stick figures, by the primitive form, by an ancient time. That sort of stuck into my head. And then I studied African art, and so that, grew more and more. And then a little bit of Egyptian art as well. So that's sort of where, we're getting a lot of the eyes and the faces, the things that are representing, other generations, other cultures. Yeah.
And I see, and art is always subjective, but I think it's pretty clear. There's a lot of cubism or Picasso's style.
Yeah, definitely influenced by Cubism. And then as far as, Picasso studied African art as well.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so, a lot of my favourite artists have studied African art and, so that's sort of where, I'm basically inspired by, Aboriginal art, African art, Egyptian art.
Have you always had this sort of style, the Cubism style, or was that an evolution over time?
It's been growing, more so in the last probably 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So it has definitely changed a lot.
Yeah. It's, I was reading up about your sort of career and your life, and you had your first exhibition at 17.
I did.
That's a big deal.
It was. And I didn't really understand it because I was just doing what I wanted to do and what I thought, was, I don't know, I was expressing something. And then there was so much hype about it, and people talking about it. It was part of the school that I went to. And, all the teachers were talking about it, and there's people wanting to buy stuff. There was people saying this is amazing. I'm like, okay, all right. I didn't know what I was doing.
I feel like that's such an Australian thing to do. Just okay.
Yeah, and I'm still doing that. I'm still just doing what's from my heart onto the canvas. So I don't really control it. It's not something that I'm like, I must do this, I must do that, I must conform to this gallery, I must conform to this agent or this management team. I don't do that.
But do you think that's part of what makes you successful? Because when you're trying to please everybody, you essentially please nobody. But when you sort of stick to what you love or what you're feeling, that's when you may polarize some people, but then the right people sort of fall in love with what you do.
And they turn up. The right people turn up. And I suppose I never want to be blueprinted by someone else or something. And I think that's my main concern. I don't want to be heavily influenced by a certain artist. And I do get a lot of references to Picasso and Basquiat, but my main influence is African art, Aboriginal art, Egyptian art.
And your first job was working in a gallery, now I hope I get this right, in
Alice Springs.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, and then I thought I was wrong. But it was just purely for Aboriginal artists.
Yeah, I moved there after high school just to, get away. And I had this interview at this Aboriginal art gallery and, no experience. I was 17. And they called me back about 3 days later saying, oh, you've got the job. So I was interviewing the Aboriginal artists, stretching canvases, sales, the whole thing when I was 17.
Everything a 17-year-old does.
Right? It was amazing.
I think I was a checkout chick at 17.
At Coles?
No, so it was still Safeway back then.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
So you've lived in Melbourne, you've lived in Sydney, you've lived in New York, you've lived in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
How did Los Angeles or New York, whichever came first, come about?
I'd been to LA before, and when I got the green card, I was like, okay, New York, LA, not really sure. Didn't know anyone. So I decided to come to LA, and I just knew that New York was going to happen as well. So it wasn't really like I was making dramatic choices. It was like, just land, just get yourself settled, then go to New York.
Yeah.
Keep coming backwards and forth. Yeah.
And you've established an incredible career here. You have an exhibition coming up in January.
Last 2 weeks of January, yeah.
And do we know where that is?
That's at the New Lapeer Hotel Gallery in West Hollywood, which opened about 8 months ago.
So are you still painting for that, or that's kind of ready to go?
I paint probably about 8 to 10 hours a day. So whether it's for an exhibition or whether it's something that I'm just working on for a possible other project, or whether it's sitting in a cafe squiggling lines, it's always happening. So yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious about this because I find most creatives don't do well with routine and structure and all of this. The hours that you paint, are they very structured, the 8 to 10 hours, or is it when the mood strikes you? Is it in the middle of the night?
So I can paint a painting I did in New York. I didn't sleep for 4 days. So that's probably your answer to your question.
Sure.
No structure.
Okay.
It just comes when it comes. So I think the main thing about painting is to block out everything else so I can just sit and focus and paint.
Do you ever get painter's block?
Yes.
Okay. How long is it? What's the longest it's ever lasted?
4 days.
Okay. That's actually not too bad.
It's all right. It's probably the most frustrating thing, especially when you're looking at a canvas and you have to have it finished on a deadline and you just can't work out what's going on. So I normally go to a different canvas, or I will do something that's going to take my mind from the actual project that I'm working on. So
okay.
yeah, but yeah, it's like writer's block, absolutely.
Well,
but 4 days is cool.
Yeah, no, 4 days is doable. Just because you read sometimes about writers that have writer's block for months or years or however long it is, and I can just imagine nothing more frustrating. You have something else coming up next year, which I'm really excited about. Melrose Avenue, Melrose Drive.
So where the Paul Smith wall is, just a block up, you know, where Made in LA mural is.
Yes.
It's on the right-hand side. So it's a store called Table Art, and they have the most amazing bowls and glasses that are made by artists. It's absolutely incredible. So they have a huge wall outside. So we've been working on what to put on that wall. Something similar to these two. Cubism inspired, you know, all my stuff has a story. So it's, I want something to, when people are driving past, I want to hold up traffic basically. So it's going to take about maybe 4 to 6 weeks to complete.
Okay, but it begins on Feb 14th.
Feb 14th, yeah.
And will people be able to go and actually just watch you working on this?
Yeah, I have a lot of friends that will be filming it, and you know, all the Instagram, social media stuff.
Everything that we need to do these days.
Right, all that stuff that's so important to our life.
And you, well, exactly. It's how we know what's going on in the world these days.
Exactly.
There was something that I found out literally before we started filming, which I think is amazing. You're working on something else, which is, as far as I'm concerned, kind of out of the box. You're painting on carpet.
I am.
How does that even work?
So it's for a rug company, Ariana Rugs in West Hollywood on Robinson Street. There's a little plug. So they approached me after seeing one of my paintings, and you know, they've been thinking about how they can actually paint on rugs, and I came up with a way of doing it. So you can walk on the rugs, you know, you can hang the rugs up on the wall, and it's for hotel lobbies, it's for everything. So
what paint do you use? How does it not peel off?
I'm using, it's a fabric ink. So basically I'm dyeing each loop on the carpet, on the rug, to make sure that, you know, when you walk on it, that it can take any kind of wear and tear.
Oh, okay. So it actually soaks into the fibre rather than sitting on top.
Absolutely. If it sits on top, you know, there's the chance that someone's going to slip on it, etc., or just wear off. So yeah.
This whole world is amazing to me, and what everybody's able to sort of come up with. And going back to the mural that you're about to paint, do you get a lot of inspiration from the street art that you find in New York, LA, Melbourne?
Look, I do, and I take a lot of photos of, you know, of murals all around the world. I'm inspired by them. I think it's a great canvas, you know, a public canvas, instead of going to a gallery or a museum, you know, to be driving past or to be walking down the street and you see amazing art. So it's one of those things that's just inside me. I just have to do murals. So this will be the largest one I'm going to do in Los Angeles. I have one planned for New York next year, and one for San Francisco as well.
Wow.
And may do one in Melbourne. I'm sort of just trying to work that out. So, you know, Melbourne's a great mural city, absolutely.
Oh, it absolutely is. The walls and the alleyways down there are just amazing. And if people haven't gone, they actually need to go and see it. Because if you love Venice, Melbourne is just on a whole other scale, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
for art and food and culture, Melbourne's a bomb.
Yes, it really is.
And Vegemite.
I do enjoy Vegemite, but every time we're together, it's a point of conversation.
Absolutely.
I love that you're just so Australian in that sense. So have we seen your artwork on other walls where maybe we don't know that it's yours?
Yes.
Are you Banksy?
Let's just say that, you know, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm inspired to, you know, to do more public art in Los Angeles, and, you know, with statements. I like to make statements about life and why we're here and what we're doing and all that sort of stuff. So those statements are spread from Beverly Hills all the way through to downtown, to Pasadena, to Palm Springs, to Santa Barbara, and
you get around.
A little bit in San Francisco as well.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a great journey, and I do it with one of my best friends. He tends to paint on things as well.
Okay.
Late at night. without saying anything more.
No, that's fine. But is it exciting for you when you've done something like that to then be driving down the street or walking down the street and see people reacting to your art?
Yeah. When people are taking photos and they're hashtagging and they're all standing around it, I think the worst thing is when the council's actually painting over it. That's when I react the most.
That would be heartbreaking.
It is. Absolutely.
Have many of them been left just as they are?
About 10%.
Oh, wow, that's not much.
No, it's not.
Well, council's a bit brutal.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
It is a shame.
I think it lightens up the city and it's better than graffiti. I understand they kind of liken it
Would
to
be
that.
classified as graffiti as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, an artist painting a wall or a fence or something outside versus somebody just tagging and writing a stupid word.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not insulting your art at this point, but to me there is a very big difference.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to ask people before we finish up, is there something about yourself that we would never guess or we would never know, whether it be something about a ritual you have when you paint or just something personally?
Great question. Look, I don't really have a ritual. I suppose for me, with my paintings, and some people see it and some people don't. Some people see colour, some people see, objects, but I paint with a message. So I'm always wanting to provoke people, as in why are we here? All those questions. So that's what I'm always trying to do. And some people see that and some people don't. So that's why I'm here. I just believe I'm here to put messages across, and it's through my paintings. Absolutely.
They are absolutely incredible, and I have loved seeing them on camera behind us. Your Instagram handles, if people want to go and have a look at your artwork and see what events you have coming up?
Yeah, is James Peter Henry. It's very easy.
Thank you so much for making the time to come and speak with me. Make sure you head to James Peter Henry's Instagram page. It is absolutely worth having a look, and there's obviously a lot of projects coming up this year or next year that are that you need to go and have a look at. So make sure you check all of that out. Until next time, I'm Natalie Sady.